I got hired, and in my mind, I was going to do this particular thing, and now everybody is telling me that what I actually wanted to do, I might be wrong for doing.
Welcome back to Teacher Tales, where we give you the keys to overcoming teacher burnout to find work-life balance and educational bliss if it still exists. I'm your host, Tony Rambles, and on this interview episode of Teacher Tales, we cover reconnecting with your core motivations, building your personal system for resilience, and the power of sharing and collaboration. Without further ado, all right, so Adam,
Yes.
welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here.
Good to have you on. Just from our little conversation that we've had before, I know that this is going to be awesome. So, of course, we got to start in the beginning. So, how did you get into education? What do you teach? And how long have you been teaching?
So, I actually grew up in a family of teachers. My mom was a teacher, my uncle was a teacher, my aunt was a teacher, so on and so forth. And when I grew up and went to college, I majored in history. And then I decided I wanted to go to law school. So I did. And went to law school, passed the bar. And I passed the bar right about the time that the bottom was falling out of the economy in the late 2000s. So there were no legal jobs available, right? So I wound up teaching an ACT prep class, just reading prep. And through that, after a couple of years of doing that, I got a call about a school in Birmingham, Alabama, where I was living at the time, that was specifically for students with learning disabilities. And they said, we've got a mid-year opening. Would you at all be interested? And I said, absolutely. And so I took that job and kept it for about 3 years until a legal position opened up for me. Went and practiced law for about a year. Absolutely hated it. And then came back to the same school. They hired me back for my position, fortunately, and was there until I moved to Olympia, Washington a couple of years ago. So on some levels, it was almost like destined for me to eventually wind up as a teacher just because of my family history. But I took kind of a circuitous route to get there.
That's interesting because you went to law school, and most people are just, the first thing I thought of was, there's got to be some student debt that has come with that law degree. Maybe you were fortunate enough to have a scholarship, or
Right.
you come from a huge family with great money, but the coin flip says that's not true. You can correct me later. But to go from having that law degree and saying, you know what, I don't want to practice law. I want to be a teacher. Like, what was that conversation like in your own head as you had it and then make that decision?
It really was. After a couple of years of teaching, I realized how much I actually do like teaching. The relationship with the students, the communicating knowledge every day, that part is so much fun. And then transitioning from that, going into law, was a thing of, do I like the intellectual challenge of this? Yes. Is the money somewhat better? Like, kind of, but not really. And do I really want to spend my life working in this particular industry? Or do I want to do the thing that I was actually having fun doing for 3 years? And when I looked at it kind of on that term, it really wasn't a hard decision to make to go back to teaching.
So what do you teach? What grade level and what subject?
So I teach, this year I'm going to be at a new school. I'm going to teach, I'm going to direct their theater department at the high school level. And so I'll be teaching all grades for acting and stagecraft, but I also teach history, and I'm certified to teach ELA as well.
So what's the difference between teaching theater, ELA, and history? Like, contrast the three, and I would say the biggest differences between them?
Yeah. With theater, obviously, there's a lot more movement and there's a lot more necessary collaboration. The kids are required to collaborate sort of in that case, which means, first of all, you're automatically working with a group of students who want to be in the class. Normally, some of them will get assigned for whatever, but for the most part, they want to be there, right? And secondly, they are automatically engaged because that's the class. With history and English, I think the biggest difference to theater is a level of interest, but B, while you still are going to want the group discussion factor in there, there is much more of a requirement that, you are the person in the classroom that has the information and knows the information. So you're the one that has to communicate that to the students. You want to do it in a way that, maybe a Socratic way where you're going to get them to ask questions or respond or whatever. But ultimately, you are the one with the information who has to do it. So there is still that aspect of top down. Whereas in theater, you're much more of a guide of what if we tried it this way? How do you want to try it? How do you see that? And you are guiding them and pointing them along the path.
What was your welcome to the classroom moment? It could be in any year. It could be in any subject. What was that moment where you go, okay, yep, either I'm a teacher or, okay, yeah, the school year started. Like, here we are.
Yeah. So my very first year teaching, I got hired on February 7th to replace a teacher who had left. I started on February 14th. So
Okay.
I'm coming in the middle of a school year. The school that I was working at the time, the building we were in, my classroom was a corner of the cafeteria. There was another classroom over a bookshelf for me. It was a school that was, at the time, it was in a really scrappy position, and we all made it work, and it was great. We had another building later, and it was way better. But that was a rough, probably first 4 months. And I debated with myself of like,
Yep.
do I want to come back? Do I not? But ultimately, I needed a paycheck. So I did come back, and thank goodness, because it was a great decision to go back. The next year that I was there was when I started the theater department at that school. And it was when that really started going that I started thinking, okay, this is actually something that I could do and enjoy and really, really see myself sticking with.
How would you describe teaching to someone who has never taught in the classroom?
Whew.
Yeah.
On the best days of teaching, it is incredibly rewarding. You're going to love the kids. You're going to feel like beyond a shadow of a doubt the difference that you're making. And it will be something very special because the thing that you know and care about and are passionate about, you have communicated it and given it to someone else who has received it in a way that they have started to get excited and passionate about it too. On the worst days of teaching, and I had a colleague one time say to me, today I love this school and I love this kids. And that's good, because there's going to come a time, maybe next week, when I hate this school and I hate these kids. And on the worst days of teaching, you will go home feeling completely exhausted, like you have been dropped in a foxhole all day, and you have no idea whether or not you actually made it out alive mentally and emotionally. And given how tired you may be, you may not realize how you made it out physically. And those are the days when just for whatever reason, it's not working for you. Maybe someone else is coming in with all these other things you have to do. And you just have this overwhelming sense of overstimulation and overwhelm that what was I thinking when I signed up to do this thing?
Those are the days where you start looking at other jobs. You're like, I don't know if I could keep
100%.
doing this.
Yeah, absolutely. 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 And it could be your
We've
first
all
day
had
of
those.
school that you have that experience, and stick with it, because you will have good days too. But yeah, you're going to have those days.
When we get to those places where it sucks for one reason or another, it could be things inside of the classroom, it could be things inside of the building that impact your classroom, or
Yeah.
it could be things just in your own personal life that have led to the burnout that we're talking about.
Right.
So, through your experience, when have you experienced burnout? What did it feel like? What was the situation? And describe how you felt at the time.
Yeah. I probably, as a teacher, the first time I started really experiencing burnout was sometime around the fall of 2019. So I was about in my 6th or 7th year at the time. I don't remember exactly, but it was a year where my prep time was in the morning when I was far more energetic, and in the afternoon when I was not energetic at all. I was teaching like 5 classes in a row and then going into theater rehearsal a couple of days a week. So I was just having no break in there, and my energy levels were just sunk. I had a couple of classes that were just not working on any level for me. And it was a level of burnout I experienced to the point that, that was fall of 2019, right? So we know what happens in March
Shortly after that.
of 2020. And I remember thinking about 2 weeks into COVID and teaching online, and we were 1-to-1 live. I was still lecturing, doing everything else. But I remember thinking about 2 weeks into COVID, like, oh, this is an actual improvement on my year, because a lot of the things that were stressing me out physically being in that place. And now that I am, I'm here, I'm sitting here talking to you, and we're on a screen, and I can mute the children, and I can, once I'm done, I'm walking 5 feet and I'm at my living room. There's something about the rest that I got during that time that helped to give me a bit of a recharge. And then, I think there's always, once you've experienced burnout, I think there's a certain level at which you're kind of more sensitive to signs of it showing up again.
You're aware.
Absolutely. And so over time, what started happening is I started thinking, okay, when I am feeling these moments of burnout, and this is what led me to create the sort of 3-step framework that I have in my Rediscover Teaching program, is when I am feeling these moments of burnout, what is it that I'm feeling? And I figured out kind of, number one, it is this sense of overwhelming stress, right? This overwhelming stress. And then 2, I am letting the boundaries that I've set between my professional and personal life be violated instead of sticking to them. And in large part, the reason I think a lot of us as teachers don't stick to them is we can be very susceptible to guilt trips, right? And so when we give into that guilt and we start allowing it's this slow creep. And then the third thing is I have lost the connection with what the basic desires, passions, and things I loved about being a teacher were. And I've gotten distracted by all these other things, and I haven't allowed those to define the core of my teaching practice, and figured out ways to incorporate everything else into those.
My fellow teacher, which one of these core tenets have been the most difficult for you to maintain? Whether it's feeling the stress of the job, or having your boundaries violated, or getting away from the core things that you felt so great about teaching. Please share your experiences with us in the Teacher Triumphs Facebook group. That is the place where we beat burnout together by sharing and building community. And now, back to Adam.
And so once I kind of figured out like, okay, these are sort of the three pillars that burnout is built on. Well, how do I provide myself and others with the tools that I need to make sure that I can manage stress efficiently, set the proper boundaries without, zero, and stick to them with zero guilt, and then make sure I'm constantly reconnecting with those core passions.
How did you come up with those three pillars? Because they're awesome, frankly, Adam. They're great. So where did the seeds get planted where you go, okay, these are the three things I want to work from?
A lot of it was having communication with other legislators, other educators. Because we all, as teachers, some of us, I'm going to pick on this a little bit, but some of us almost wear it like a badge of honor how stressed out we are.
Say that again for the people in the back, Adam.
Some of us almost wear it like a badge of honor how stressed out we are. And how much time we didn't have over the weekend or summer or whatever because we were doing all this other stuff. And that's fine if you want to do that, but it may be causing you to experience greater levels of burnout. So in talking with other educators, it was, okay, we're all stressed out. We got that one down. We know that one. Then it was, all right, well, one of the things that we keep talking about that's consistently stressing us out is this violation of boundaries that we feel. And it's even in terms of, I'm in the middle of doing something, all of a sudden, admin, who I do think gets some unfair criticism, but they have to manage a, 50, 60, 70, whatever staff team, and they call us in for a meeting right in the middle of doing all of this, and now I've got to reschedule everything else to fix that, but I feel like my time has been violated. Yeah. And so, okay, so we've got the stress, now we've got the boundaries, but is that it? Like, is that all we're doing, or is there more that we should be looking for? And then I hear teachers talk, and the thing they consistently talk about is, God, the paperwork is awful. Or, I've got to fill out this IEP, I've got to do all of this. And it's all this other stuff that is useful and necessary, but is not teaching, right? It's even down to the aspect, I think, of there's this big push in education right now of, student-centered work, and the student should be doing everything. And if you're up there lecturing, you're part of the problem and all this other kind of stuff.
Okay.
And I think it is important to be student-centered. But if all the students are doing is ed puzzles, because we're being student-centered, why do I need a degree in order to do this job? Why didn't you just hire somebody to come in and turn on a puzzle? And I think that frustrates teachers because there's a lot of this that we feel like, well, I got hired and in my mind I was going to do this particular thing, and now everybody is telling me that what I actually wanted to do, I might be wrong for doing. And so I think there's a place for all of this stuff. But I think as we lose touch, as we kind of get caught into these side issues of, am I doing this right, or whatever, how am I filling out this paperwork? We're losing connection with those core things that brought us in and made us want to be teachers in the first place.
Sometimes these mandates come down from the district or from admin or whoever, and they say, oh, well, you got to do it like this.
Right.
And that is the part where I think there has to be some wiggle room. There has to be some area for everybody to be who they are within the classroom. Now, there are some best practices. There are some things that work more than others. Right. I'm always, how much can we get the students to do, to create, to synthesize?
Right.
And I know you're not saying, oh, well, I just want to be the only person in the room talking and stuff.
No. But
you're saying, well, hold on, wait a second. If I need to get up here and talk, like I have this expertise, like let me cook for a little bit.
Absolutely.
And we will get to, the projects and the other stuff. And that definitely contributes to burnout when people aren't able to be who they are and
100%.
do things in a way that bring the best out of them. I think
Absolutely.
that's definitely the thing. Um, so when these
Absolutely.
things were happening and you experienced this, what are some solutions that you came up with to navigate these different waters and these different admin and these different problems that come your way?
Yeah. Um, so this is where the sort of third aspect of my long and winding career kind of comes into the picture, right? Because when I took the year off from teaching to practice law, I decided I wanted to do something that I'd kind of always wanted to do since I was in college. And I decided that I wanted to learn how to do hypnosis and become a hypnotist.
Oh,
And as I said, for most people, I kind of get a shocked reaction. Anybody that knows me, as soon as they find that out, go, yeah, that sounds completely right. And so I took a year, and it started with stage hypnosis and doing comedy shows and mentalism and stuff like that. And then I kind of incorporated the coaching and therapeutic side of things into that. So over the course of that, what I learned is a lot of people view hypnosis as this kind of, I'm going to put you under my power right now and make you do
yeah,
this, right? I'm going to make you squawk like a chicken or whatever.
like a Disney movie or something.
Right, exactly. And what I came to learn over the time of studying this is hypnosis is not about fixing the problem.
Mm,
Hypnosis is about helping you to create the shifts in yourself that need to happen so you can fix the problem.
okay.
And so obviously one of the first things people think about when hypnosis is like, how do we deal with stress and anxiety, right? So when we do that, it's here are the tools that I learned that don't even have to be in hypnosis for you to use to do that. And so I would start incorporating these tools in my own life. And I would say, okay, I'm feeling stressed right now. So what is it I'm going to do? And I would do something, it's called bilateral stimulation. And basically you just take an object and you kind of pass it back and forth across the midline. And because stress tends to live in one side of your brain, the emotional side of your brain, what happens is as you activate both hemispheres by passing it across, then the stress can't hold itself together anymore. So this is a thing I can do. I can be in the middle of class and I'm feeling stressed and I'm just sitting there going like this back and forth. And nobody knows what I'm doing, right? It's just I'm playing with a pen in my hand. But over the course of 15 to 20 seconds, it's like, okay, now it's starting to dissipate. It's starting to drop. We've gone from like an 8, now we're down to the 3. And the more you build these neurological pathways, the stronger they get, right? So it becomes even faster for you to just make use of that. And so I would start incorporating these things. And then it became, okay, well, how do I apply this to helping myself set boundaries?
Right.
Well, we just kind of determined like one of the things about boundaries is the sense of guilt you feel. So how can I use these tools to help myself be able to be more resilient against that sense of guilt that intentionally or not is being placed on me? And how do I use this to refocus myself to be able to say, all right, these are the boundaries I'm going to set. And here's the reason I'm setting them, right? And I'm going to stick to that because I am worth that. My family is worth that. My friends are worth that. My time is worth that.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean I care. I can be an ocean of compassion
Yes.
and still have incredibly strong boundaries set for everything else so that I make sure that my time is my time so that I get the recharge and the rest that I need so that when I go back to the classroom, I have what I need
Yes.
to do what's important for the students and do what's necessary for them. And then with rediscovering your passion, it really started when I began studying the Enneagram probably about 8 years ago. And I started to learn about core motivations and core passions. And then it became, okay, I'm a 7, as an Enneagram 7, what is it about teaching that is super appealing to me that I can incorporate to make me love my job more in such a way that is also going to cause my students to love my subject matter more. And when that happens and you can start to build that world and you put all these three things together, what happens is the burnout just goes away. And then as you start to see the signs of it coming back on, you can start to look back at these three things and say, okay, where have I started to cave in? Mm-hmm. And so that's what I try and implement for myself. And also what I try and teach people in our monthly meetings is, here is a set of tools that you can use for this particular pillar. And go out, implement them, see how they're working. Let's talk about them. Let's play with them. Let's see what happens. And as we do that, let's build this whole structure and system within ourselves. Because a lot of times, and you mentioned, the district or admin sort of creating these systemic changes. And let's be honest, we need a massive education system overhaul in the United States. It needs to happen. None of us deny that. But that doesn't happen overnight. And one of the best ways for that to happen is for teachers to build within themselves the system they need to build so that we now can show how much better a way there is to do things. That's how systemic change is ultimately going to happen. So my goal is to help teachers realize you do have power and you do have the ability within you to create the change in yourself that ultimately is going to lead to these much larger things happen.
And as I hear you talk, the hope, because I know a lot of teachers, and I'm sure you've have had the same conversations when you see somebody or you experience somebody else's system, either by, walking their room or just being buddies with them and talking PLC, where you go, dang, this is awesome. Like, you should share this with other people.
Absolutely.
And typically, a lot of times people go, I don't really want that extra work. That's how you go.
Right.
Dang. And,
right.
I mean, you can't blame them.
No.
But at the same time, it's like, we need that. Like,
right.
Think about insert historical figure here. What if they said, well, I don't really want that extra work. I don't really want to share my I have a dream speech, or, I don't really want to share my ideas about the iPhone.
Right.
I'll just so hopefully we will have, as teachers that I know, that that are working around the country and around the world, come up with these excellent structures that we would be willing to share them and to teach others and to bring each other together by co-constructing, collaborating these structures that one day may be used at large, throughout our country, like we're talking about.
Absolutely.
So speaking of co-constructing and collaborating, we're going to collaborate on some 5 W's.
Okay.
Which is the who, what, when, where, why, as you should know, being a former English teacher.
Right.
So I'm going to let you decide which W you want to start.
Let's start with the what.
Okay. What is your escape plan?
I think it would be really, really fun to get to do hypnosis full time. It is something I genuinely love. I love performing. I love being on stage. I love coaching people. I love seeing shifts happen in their life that change them. So to the extent I have an escape plan, it is that. It is building a hypnosis business that takes me to be able to do that full time, which I would absolutely love. Either that or winning the Powerball. One or the other. So.
Okay, next W.
Okay. Win. Let's do win next.
When did you begin to feel confident in yourself as a teacher?
Probably about midway through my second year of teaching. That's about the time that I feel like I got the systems in place within my classroom that were useful enough that I could, even though it was my first full year teaching and you're still like creating everything for the very first time, right? And that's kind of overwhelming. It was around that time that I started to feel like, okay, this is working. They're responding. They're, doing well. And that was probably the first time, that I started to feel confidence in myself as a teacher.
Okay, what's down, when's down? We got who, where, or why.
Let's do why.
Why do people quit education? So many reasons, right?
I think, yeah. I think people quit education because they have reached a point where they have come to believe that the overwhelm that they are feeling is not going to get better unless they leave education. I think they leave because there is a sense of hopelessness and despair. And it is it reaches the point that they simply decide they have to do something, and many of them feel that their only alternative to doing, or their only way to do something, is to get out of the classroom. And for some of them, that may be absolutely the right decision for them to make. You know, for others, there's this story about a guy in Virginia who was mining for gold, and he's in the mine and he's working, and he just feels like he's never going to find it. He's been there for weeks. And then, so he sells the mine, and another guy buys it, come in, digs 3 feet further, and there's the gold. And so I think for some teachers, there is this sense of, you know, if you want it, there are ways to get that extra 3 feet. And if you can get that extra 3 feet, you're going to have a career that is fulfilling and rewarding and that you absolutely love waking up every day for. But for some, I think, you know, we get the Sunday scaries, and then it's like, I can't do this anymore. I can't not sleep on Sunday night, and I gotta go. And for some people, I think that's the right call.
I had a principal, and she was on the show, Cindy Ward. She said, as a principal, my job was to help them up or to help them out.
Yep.
And I've always thought that was a great philosophy.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
We have who or where.
Let's do who.
Who in education has helped you the most?
Who in education has helped me the most? I would say it is actually one of my college history professors. He was this fascinating individual. He'd gotten his doctorate at St. John's at Oxford. He was classmates with Tony Blair and Rowan Atkinson, and he would tell us all these fascinating stories. And he would walk into class. I don't know how he wound up teaching in Alabama, but he would walk into class with a bottle of water and whatever book he was reading for fun, and he would talk for an hour and a half. And it was the most fascinating thing. He had a lecture about camels that he gave, that we're just all sitting there on the edge of our seat listening to this man tell us about camels, right? And it made me realize how much a teacher who loves their own subject matter so much can cause their students to also really love that subject matter. I liked history growing up, but I learned to really love history in Dr. Welch's class. And so when I became a teacher, it was my mission to whatever I need to do to make this as fascinating as possible to these students. That's what I want to try and do.
We have our last W.
All right, let's go for it.
Where's your happy place? Outside of education, where's the place you like to go and it's like, yep, this is a great time?
So it's shifted a lot over the years. I mean, certainly I think we all would say time with family and friends is a happy place. But for me, recently, it has been my dojo. I started taking karate classes about 7-8 months ago now. And I have found it to be the most enjoyable, therapeutic, just wonderful thing. I'm there. I'm with the community. We have fun. We laugh and we learn and we get good exercise and good knowledge and habits built out of it. Right. So it is a thing where we're recording this in about an hour. A class starts and I'll probably be there for it. It's just one of those places. I head there most days after school and I never regret going there. And I'm always so much happier when I get home from there.
Dang, you are a very interesting person, Adam. You do a lot of cool stuff.
Thank you.
Before we get out of here,
Yeah.
What advice would you give a new teacher and what advice would you give an experienced teacher?
I would give a new teacher the advice of give it time, allow yourself to make the mistakes in figuring out what works best for you and your students, and start from the beginning to implement strategies to learn how to manage stress, set boundaries for yourself, and keep your connection. If you are an experienced teacher, my advice to experienced teachers would be you have a lot of wisdom to offer younger teachers. Please share it. And be open to new ideas and concepts and realize that the longer you are there, the higher your chance of experiencing some burnout. And you also need to, if you don't already, you need to begin, instead of just saying to yourself, well, I guess that's just a job, you need to be able to start implementing these strategies as well. And figure out what those core motivations were that brought you to teaching, write them down, put them next to your desk, and look at them every single day.
Boom. Thank you so much, Adam.
Of course, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it.
That was the conversation with Adam Jones and just his perspective and even the personal things that he's learned and how he's been able to implement them into the classroom, into his teaching practice. I feel like has been something that has changed his teaching forever. And hopefully our conversation has done the same for you. Before we get out of here, remember, learn how to set and maintain boundaries, capital B, without losing your compassion for students. Discover the power of reconnecting with your core motivation to overcome burnout. And lastly, build a personal system that fosters your own resilience and joy in your teaching career. Because without it, without these systems in place, without maintaining your boundaries, without knowing your why, a lot of people like to use that phrase, you get burned out easily and you end up leaving. And great teachers leave education when they really didn't have to. Because you enjoyed what you heard from this episode, go join the Teacher Triumphs Facebook group. Me and Jen created it as a way to help you overcome burnout and balance life by building community with other wonderful educators. Thank you for listening. I'll be back next Monday and Thursday with more Teacher Tales. Keep teaching, keep learning, and I will see you all on the next journey.